Hello, everyone, and welcome to Finding Our Voices, where we talk about all things voice acting. I am your host, Fan. Oh, I see our hedgehog is not hidden. Whoops. Well, I might as well introduce that co-host then, along with the other one, before I go ahead with the rest here. Andrew,
I have
Prote,
exist.
say hi.
I exist again. Hi, how's it going?
So, as usual, our sponsor is W. You can get a link down in the description for 10% off. And if you want to support me, we have a Patreon for myself down in the description as well. Now, to introduce our usual peanut gallery. Today we've got Lou, we've got Inkblot, and we have our boy Wiz. And our illustrious guest today is Mike Pollock, who has done many, many voices from everything between Eggman and jeez. There are so many options, honestly. Just say hi, Mike.
Hi. Yes, that's me, Mr. Prolific. That's what I call myself. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be.
Always great to have a lovely guest like you on.
Thank you.
We've got plenty of questions for you today, so let's go ahead and get started.
Please.
Who or what inspired you to start voice acting?
I guess TV. Well, TV and radio. As a kid, I loved radio because I'm an old soul, always have been. And I found old school radio dramas and said, "Well, that's a fun little genre. Let's explore that." You know, this is the old time radio, and then cartoons, which, if you think about it, are just radio plays with pictures. I obviously became a fan of those with the likes of Mel Blanc and the cast of Rocky and Bullwinkle and that sort of thing. And then when it came time to pick a career, my first love, I guess, would have been radio. My second love would be theater. But they are both not completely independent of each other. So I did theater in school, and then when career time came, I said radio's a little more stable than theater. Let's pursue radio, which I did until we found out that radio was not so stable. And then I was able to
Video
fall
killed
back
the
on
radio
the
star.
yeah, basically, and radio management killed the radio guy, but never mind. And so I took my collection of voices that I'd done for commercials and stuff, built a demo tape, shopped it around, and some people liked.
Honestly, that's amazing. I love that.
Thank you.
And Rocky and Bullwinkle definitely has a special spot in my heart, too. I can English, I swear. My words are
brilliant.
not coming out right.
That's all right.
Ugh. But my first introduction to your voice was actually in the Sonic X series as Eggman.
Excellent.
And as Ella. Let's not forget
course.
Ella.
Please, some would, but I won't.
So, what would you say your favorite experience working on that series was?
The laughter, just all the work I do. There's an underlying current of laughter and fun, as Mary Poppins once said. In every job that must be done, there's an element of fun. And between takes, the stuff you won't hear, we're laughing and scratching and having a grand old time. But the coolest part of any 4Kids experience is booking a recurring gig on a series, because the best kind of business is repeat business. And with a series, you keep coming back and getting to not only get paid for what you do, but you get to have the fun of being able to perform, which is what I love. So that was a sign that I was doing something right, I guess.
That's actually really interesting. I definitely think that sounds amazing. And I wish I could have seen it myself. It sounds like fun.
I recommend it, though it's not exactly the spectator sport that I wish it could be.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
Some of my cast also has some questions for you, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to Andrew for one of his questions. Go ahead, Andrew.
Oh yeah. It was perfect when you said 4Kids because that's one of my questions of what was it like working with 4Kids?
They were great people. I mean, they are great people. Most of them are not deceased. A couple of exceptions there, but generally great people to work with. Keep in mind that voiceover is a freelance gig, just like any acting gig. So at the time, I had a day job that I would be skipping out on. So the hard part was my boss, my actual real life daytime boss, saying, "You can't leave the office for so long." So for the first few months or so, I was able to sneak out of the office and have 2 hour sessions and not be back in the office for almost 3 hours until the boss got upset with that and issued the edict of no 2 hour sessions. So then it was a lot of 1 hour sessions, but more opportunity to go back multiple times. And believe me, it was much more fun going to record stuff than it was in the drudgery of the day job. Um, so yeah, delightful memories. Miss it greatly, mostly because of the recurring, a couple times a week of fun. Yay!
Uh,
Yay.
yeah, I, I, I do. I remember every Saturday morning watching 4Kids just to watch Sonic X. I loved
Good
it.
times.
Gotta
Good
love
times.
those
Yeah.
Saturday morning
Yep.
cartoons.
Yeah.
Let's jump up to Wiz for our next question. Go ahead, bud.
Please, please.
Oh, wait, we're going straight to me?
Yeah, we're jumping
Yep.
up to you for a question.
Alright, well, I'll just say this. You did mention something that was kind of tied to one of my questions, that being that you used to work with radio. So my question is there any connection between the two between radio and voice acting that makes voice acting any easier for you?
Yes and no. Depends on the aspect of radio. Doing voices in commercials is very much like voice acting in cartoons. You're playing a character with scripted lines in a scenario. When you're a DJ or a news personality, you're essentially playing a version of yourself and either ad-libbing your own material if you're a DJ or reading a news script that you may have written previously if you're a news person. Um, One of the challenges when I started to focus on voiceover coming out of radio is unlearning some bad habits and not realizing the intricacies of, for example, commercial voices. I was when I worked with a coach for a while when I was starting out in voiceover specifically, and the first bit of sample copy he gave me to read, I said, "Hey, sure, I'm a radio guy. I'll read this like a radio spot." That was the wrong answer because the trend, even more so now, is person to person. You're talking to one person and you're talking casually. So he trained that out of me fairly quickly, and I'm now able to listen more critically and hear different types of reads and how different types of things should sound. Because some things, if they're narration, still sound like a narrator. But if you're auditioning for a character, I did that a couple times today, you've got to sound more or less casual and conversational, even if it's with some bizarre, quirky character, which sometimes it is. So interrelated, and there is a lot of overlap. A lot of people doing what we do either are or were in radio, but you got to be careful of those bad habits because they'll trip you up.
Hmm.
All right,
Well, thank you
Inkblot.
for that.
Let's get a question from you.
Oh, right to me. Okay. So, you've been voice acting since the 1980s. What changes in the voice acting industry have you noticed throughout your career?
Coming up from radio, when I started in radio, it was professionally in '86 and slightly earlier in high school in '83, '82 would have been, yeah, '81 or '82. Everything was analog. Audio tape, magnetic tape. To edit, you had to get a razor blade and a grease pencil and mark a bit on the tape. Listen to where you had to mark it by scrolling back and forth, marking it, slicing it with a videotape, physically cutting tape together to make stuff, to remove mistakes or make magic happen. Um, During my time in radio and radio syndication after that, digital stuff was starting to creep in with a lot of proprietary systems. And then by the time 4Kids came along, Pro Tools was fully entrenched, and that's how most professional VO stuff is done at most studios. It's all Pro Tools and people cutting to video in real time, more or less. And I've learned, fortunately, had a production background in analog. So when the world became digital and I became digital with it, I had some of the basic skills and could adapt to figure out, oh, this is how this relates to what I used to do with a razor blade slicing my fingers off. Cool.
I'm sorry. The way you phrased that was just interesting to me.
I have sliced my finger off, not since I've gone digital. I injure myself other ways, but one of my fondest or lack of non-fondest memories, I was interning at a radio station in Long Island, New York, and they didn't really know what they wanted me to do, but one of the things they needed me to do is cut old tape off an open reel, which you can do with a razor blade because the open reel had spaces in between the metal pieces, and you take a razor blade and basically saw through, and all the tape flies off in a very decorative flurry to the ground. And when you're not paying attention, slicey, slicey, finger, finger, and I cut myself.
You know what? That's fair.
I survived. What doesn't kill me makes me stronger, and it didn't kill.
Let's hop to ProTag next for another question here.
Please.
ProTag? You there, bud?
Don't tell me he's dead already.
Oh, no.
Oh man.
I think, buddy boy, I might be having some microphone issues.
It seems so. Oh, dear.
All right, who cut his mic?
Oh.
Oh.
With me.
and
Oh, he's back.
down he goes.
Alright, it seems he's
Man
trying
overboard.
to
All right.
get fixed.
You can do
Well,
it.
while
We
he
have
tries to
faith in
fix
you.
that, we're gonna go ahead and jump to Lou for a question. Lou is
Alright,
actually our resident Eggman voice,
Excellent.
among other
One
things.
of my favorite things to do.
That sounds familiar.
Spider-Man meme. Look out.
Oh no.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh, there we go. There we go. He's got his mic.
Okay. Oh, there he is.
Oh,
We
cool.
can hear you.
Works. Awesome.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
So
We'll do
Here's
Lou's
my
question
plan.
and then ProTags.
Oh, fight it
So-
out. I'm kidding. though.
I can wait.
That would be interesting.
Eggman and Sonic not good. That's you defeat me. Anyway, so has anyone recognized you in real life, and how was that experience?
Usually with some help, but actually, no, that's not true. The one time I remember when it was without help, my kids and I, when they were much younger, we were in a GameStop where if I'm going to be recognized anywhere, it's going to be in a GameStop. And I guess I was talking, or they recognized my face. Do I know you? I said, yeah, you probably do. Hi, I'm Mike. I'm good to see you. Great. The other time, and I think it may have been with a little help from my family, we were flying back from a trip to London, and the guy in airport security who was investigating my Pelican case full of microphone, I guess saw my name and said, "Is that Mike Pollock from the cartoons?" I said, "Yes, it was." "Oh my God, it's great to meet you." And then the third most memorable time recently, we were at the Lego store, where of course there's all the Sonic Lego sets, and my family said, "Hey, you know who we are? You know who he is? Come here, come say hi." And okay, we had a quick little meet and greet, and people were delighted and excited. And
Oh, I wish I was there for that.
That sounds lovely.
Yeah.
We did have one of our buddies just pipe up in the comments here in the side, saying that he wanted to say that he especially loved your work in Sonic Boom, because instead of evil genius Eggman, it's a highly relatable, crazy, and chaotic but funny Eggman.
crotchety
And
old
I'm
neighbor
sorry,
again.
Tango, we cannot invite you up right now.
There's the egg whites. These are egg yellows.
Baby yellow. Thank you, Emma.
All right, ProTag, on to
have
your
fun here.
question. We most certainly do have fun here.
First things first, let me make sure my microphone's working.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's
No,
working.
No, it isn't. I couldn't hear a word you said. I'm kidding.
Ah, come on! Seriously? Jeez, come on. Okay, fine. All right.
Never leave the
Screw it,
technical
we're gonna do it,
things
we're
to
gonna
the
do it live,
smart.
we're
to the
gonna
not.
do it live. All right. Anyways, my question is, when it came to the Eggman voice, what exactly inspired that kind of tone, that amount of gristle that you gave? Because you're basically going off of like what other people were doing, I'm guessing, and then you kind of use that maybe as a reference, or you made a completely different voice completely on its own. Like, I'm wondering, where's the inspiration for that?
Little of both. Started with the audition process began innocently enough when Four Kids held a meeting among all the voice talent, which they never did. But among the things they mentioned is we have a new series we're working on. It's called Project X. We can't tell you anymore. Okay, cool. Turns out Project X was Sonic X, and the folks that produced Kirby Right Back At Ya, the same producer, was very interested in having me read for Dr. Eggman. So they gave me a bunch of clips of what I later realized was Dean Bristow from one of the earlier games and said, match this.
Rest in peace.
Okay, so yeah, exactly right. So I listened, and my job was to listen and repeat. So I listened to Dean Bristow, and I mastered my Dean Bristow, and I went in and did my audition as Dean Bristow. I'm Dean Bristow. There was an audition. They were not convinced. There was another callback. I went back to the same, my Dean Bristow, this is the line. There was another round of callbacks after that, and I guess the third time's the charm. And somebody, presumably at Sega, said, "You'll do," and I did. Then we started recording Sonic X. So if you listen to the earliest few episodes of Sonic X, Eggman is very much down here, very deep, which I was fine with, until the director and producer came to me one day and said, "We'd like you to add some peaks and valleys in the voice for comedy purposes." And the reference they gave me was Martin Short's Jiminy Glick character, who starts way up high and then goes way down low. And I've been more or less emulating versions of that since then. There's been a much greater dynamic range as far as pitch. And then it naturally settled into a comfortable place. Because while I could have stuck with the Dean Bristow voice, it's staying down here is actually kind of painful if you try to extend it. And then when you start yelling, all the yelling sounds the same. Because as I often say, me yelling is me yelling. So finally we found a happy medium that people seem to enjoy.
And my goodness, do people enjoy it.
Okay.
Still ongoing to this day.
Yeah, not to mention, and not to mention you had a chance to work with somebody like Jason Griffith, and his voice was like all over the place. Just with his energy. Like you probably had to find a way to match it, or even go above that, didn't you?
Depends on the scene. I was relying very much on my director, who at the time was usually Andrew Reynolds of television and Broadway, and he would give me notes because it was his vision, and I was able to match his vision, and we recorded separately. So saying I worked together with Jason is kind of a misnomer. We would see each other in passing. One of us would be coming in. One of us would be going out, and hi, how are you? Good to see you. Oh, you're Jason Griffith. Oh, great. But usually we were recording separately and either working off a recording of the one who'd been there before, or imagining what they'd sound like if they haven't been in yet. So it's a fascinating process, if I do say so myself.
Thank you very much for answering my question. Actually, real quick, if I can quickly just derail just slightly, we have another question from the audience. Tango Foxtrot. Quick question, Mike. How do you deal with vocal strain? I'm trying to keep my Ian Ziering impression from faltering.
I have
it. Did I read that right?
Yeah.
Close enough. Medical attention is great to have. I've found various ear, nose, throat specialists throughout my career, and if something's really wrong, I call them. But generally, there are probably healthy habits that I should pay more attention to. But it's tricky because if somebody's hired you to yell your brains out, you got to yell your brains out. And plenty of my colleagues and I, if we have yelly, screamy scenes, we're going to be hoarse and gruff and scratchy the next couple days. But the best you could do, hydration, lots of water. I like lozenges. Some people like tea and honey. If you can vocal rest, just shut the hell up for as much as possible when you're done. And sometimes you have to because you can't stand listening to yourself. That's a great thing. But I'm reminded of at least one video game session which I want to remember as being for Just Cause 3, where I was an NPC. Sore throat. You're not supposed to do that. The cardinal rules is don't book sick. I've booked 6 several times because it worked and I could. But in this case, I went in with a sore throat and I saw the kind of violent deaths I'd be experiencing. And I said, hang on, I got to make a call. I called my ear, nose, throat guy's office and said, I'm going to about to be doing a yelly session. Can I get an appointment for 3 hours from now? I may have a problem. They did. I went in. Yep, you strained it. Shut up. Have a nice day.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Uh,
As someone who tends to
Ears,
find it
nose,
hard
throat.
to not
Okay.
yell every so often, I understand that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned tea, and that's definitely one of my go-tos. I know Protag too.
Same.
For me, I just
Especially honey.
Little
Just the right
spicy.
amount of honey.
for me, I just usually use honey lemon tea. Usually.
Also, fan
I
little
usually
message
go for the
you in
Lipton
chat.
tea.
Yep.
Honey,
Or,
sugar.
or
all
maple
good.
syrup. Syrup all the way.
Oh, my
In the
fiance's here.
mood, I'll definitely
Hi, honey.
do.
My fiance's in the
But
audience
no,
giving a
I'm
little
definitely
watch.
Ha!
Aw, look
Everyone
at,
say hi to
aw,
Kayla
look
for
at
me.
that. Fans got.
Hey.
Everyone.
Their name's
gosh.
Kayla.
What
Yep.
have you?
Hi, Kayla. How you doing? Hope you're doing okay and enjoying this stream. Fan, should we
Yep.
read some more of these?
Yeah, we've got one from Captain. Would you
these,
care to read that one out for
questions?
me, Andrew?
Captain.
Yep.
Okay. Random question, Mike. Who is your favorite character within the Sonic franchise?
Well, apart from the ones I've done, all of whom I love, going back to Sonic X, I was incredibly impressed with, again, director Andrew Reynolds, who voiced Bokoon. And that whiny, pinched up voice, he just did that. There was no fancy digital processing. He could do that and
Wow.
sustain that. So, yeah,
Honestly,
that was fantastic.
I was kind of wondering
I know.
if it
I mean,
was
I know I have talent, but
audio enhanced, but dang.
Nope, that was him.
Alright, well, we're gonna take a little break from the audience questions because I know that we've all got a bunch of questions here for you still.
we do have a lot of questions on the list we need to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's go with another one of mine. As I've said before, you seem to have a lot of fun doing what you do, but you seem to also have a lot of fun, especially during the Twitter takeovers. Is that all improv?
That's a great question, and I love that question because no, it's not.
Oh.
Everything is freshly scripted.
Oh.
Generally a little peek behind the curtain. They've written, usually, it depends on it varies, so let me take it back. Originally, they would write out the opens and the intros and outros to the whole thing, so we can plan ahead and take off early and go have dinner. But usually we come in, the intro is already written, and then we open up the floor to the internet and their questions. And questions pour in. The social media team and friends sit in the back room and select questions, and then craft funny answers and hand us a script. And one of the basic skills of an actor, especially a voice actor, is being able to read aloud without sounding like they're reading. So we get a script and we just read it. Well, I guess we do a little more than read it, but we read it as casually and realistically as we can. And that turns into our Twitter takeovers. So no, they are all scripted. We get to ad-lib a little bit. We seldom do because they write such brilliant stuff. And the difference between Twitter takeovers and our regular stuff, we're not really directed. If we do in a game or a show, there's a director there. But in the takeovers, we're pretty much on our own. We'll ask the social media folks, what's this reference mean? How do you pronounce this? And they'll give us some tips. But other than that, they trust us and we're on our own.
I
do
have to
have a follow-up
say,
question to
one of
that,
my
actually.
favorites was the furry question in the last one. That was just funny.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a follow-up
tricky.
question to the.
Please.
So the whole, I believe it was Rogers who said it. Like, and where's your dad's line?
Mhm.
Was that him or was that scripted?
I wish I could remember now. It's such question. It could very well have been an ad lib, but without looking at scripts, which I don't have handy, I don't remember.
That'd be more one if we ever get Roger
I
on the
remember
show.
word for word on it. I do remember word for word about that, about what Sonic said specifically.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good question, Kobe. I don't know. But actually, on an unimportant note, did you ever find your dad?
Actually, putting context, and no, that was
You know you were close enough.
Yeah.
yeah, Roger. Roger would not necessarily be expected to know the history of um, Kobe. So yeah, that was scripted because the social media team knew the history of Kobe.
That's fair.
Okay. Okay.
Well,
That's
All
good to know.
right. Out of all the roles that you've had, which would you say is your favorite?
All of them.
Okay, valid.
Fair point.
The better answer to that is always the next one.
Oh.
But I love
Yeah.
what I do. One of the greatest things is you don't get bored doing this because there's always something new. Even if it's the same character, it's a new script. But if it's a brand new character that I'm building from scratch, that's so cool too. And just the experience of working with great people, great directors, great producers, great colleagues. Excuse me, if anyone's acting with me. Um, it's all so great. Even the most boring narration. There are a few exceptions. There are lousy directors that make a process unpleasant, but they're few and far between. But even the most boring narration, I'll find something fun about it because I'm there to make the project interesting to listen to, even if it's otherwise something that sounds boring.
All right. On a more semi-recent note, COVID kind of brought a lot of change to the voice acting industry and has made the industry as a whole more accessible for remote voice work. What are your thoughts on these changes to the industry as a whole?
It's great as long as the setup that you're working with is acceptable to clients, which in my cases so far it is, with very few exceptions. The exceptions that exist, knowing those clients as I do, I'm not surprised. Um, so these days, I'm in the suburbs of New York City. I take a bus into Manhattan maybe once or twice a year. The rest of the time, I just step right up into my attic office space, and most people are quite satisfied with what I can provide remotely. And it's a good and bad situation because, of course, now instead of competing with my fellow New Yorkers for roles, I'm competing with the entire country, if not the world. Um, and may the best talent, excuse me, best talent win, because that's the nature of our business. But it's a mixed bag. But there is a larger talent pool to draw from, so even folks that are not listed in one of the big production centers can still find work. That is great. And believe me, the joy of walking 12 steps up to my studio versus going outside, hopping on a bus, being on a bus for hours, there's no comparison. It's great to go see people. I did a commercial read a couple months back, like, oh, people in studios. I remember how this was. But also, I was booked for the day, and there was a lot of hang around and wait. We have to get this reviewed. Okay.
I'd imagine it's also really nice with the current heat going around to not have to really
Yeah,
leave your home.
well, that presents its own challenges because here in the attic, heat rises. So if
Oh,
I've got a
yeah.
session, I've got to kill the air conditioner. Now, there's a workaround for auditions. There is noise reduction plugins. My lovely colleague Dave B. Mitchell recommended one where I can record with this air conditioner on that you can possibly hear in the background, and
Actually, we
then
don't.
just run this filter. Cool, perfect. Well, good. Maybe I'll use this microphone when I audition, but on my real microphone, not the little earbuds I'm using now. It picks up the air conditioner, but I can record with the air conditioner on, run this filter, and it pretty much vanishes well enough for an audition. I wouldn't necessarily use it for a booking, but I've recorded in hotel rooms, and thanks to some AI processing, which can remove echo and background noise, you can do pretty good sounding auditions with technology. So it's a whole new world.
So, as a voice actor, I know a lot of fans have probably given you gifts and such. What is the strangest gift you've gotten from a fan?
Ooh, I won't say this too loud. In the Sonic Boom, around the time of Sonic Boom, the social media team posted a recipe for evil cookies,
Oh.
and I
Oh.
was at a convention,
love
and
it.
someone made them, which is
Oh.
lovely. But you don't unsolicited food from a stranger.
I don't know that.
So
I understand that. Uh,
so I was very grateful, but I left them in the green room, and I don't know what it was.
I definitely understand the sentiment of, oh, I'll do something
Mhm,
nice for this voice actor that I like.
mhm.
But it's
That was good.
also an issue of, well, they don't know what you've put in them.
Well, they know they could have put a microchip that tracked every move. That's
Mhm.
scary.
That might be
It's a
the
little
best
risky.
possible option, but yeah, exactly.
Also,
It could be poison.
just to go back to what you said about you doing your work and how you enjoy it, would you say you like to do it for the art?
My joy comes from performing. Even when I was a kid and doing community theater for free, um, just the joy of being able to go on stage. Okay, there's a fine line between egotistical and arrogance that I'm going to cross here, but um, as many artistic uh, songs and things have mentioned, actors love applause. It's very much look at me. My look at me gene may go slightly differently, but applause is a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful thing. To be told you done it all. Okay, going back to the world of psychology, all God's children want attention. They'd rather getting it from doing something nice, but if they can't, they'll get it from doing something bad. Preferably nice attention. We all move towards pleasure and away from pain. So a round of applause feels great. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I love to. I get up on stage and people laugh, usually for the right reasons. But that's also a great feeling. So my joy comes from performing. When I'm recording stuff, my audience is the people, are the people, my audience being the people on the other side of the glass or at the other end of the digital connection. And if I'm making them laugh, or if they think, that was great, let's go on to the next line, yay, I've done good. And it's just a great feedback loop. Um, so I've helped out my kids with their school projects for free, so I still can do it for the joy. But the fact that I've been able to parlay it into a career, you get do what's the phrase he said, losing his train of thought. Find a job that you love, and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yep.
Definitely agree with that one.
That is. Yep.
I 100% agree.
So, what are some of the common misconceptions about voice acting for large companies like Sega?
That we're employees, and it gets into the weeds of the employment world. We are freelancers. Acting, as I said before, is a freelance profession. I think I said it before. If not, I said it just now. Acting is a freelance profession. Even on movies and TVs, you're employed for the duration of the project, but you're employed as a freelancer. So the production doesn't give you typical employment benefits like health insurance and other perks. That either comes from your union if you're working a union job. The union and its collective bargaining provides health insurance. If you work enough, which is a bit of a loophole, or if it's a non-union work, you're buying your own health insurance if you need it. But we are not employees. I am not a Sega employee. I have been treated like an employee on business trips where they fly me out and I get an expense account to the extent of you get this much of an allowance per day for food and get reimbursed for the Wi-Fi on the plane. But beyond that, we are not Sega employees. And the other misconception would be that the work takes longer than it is. Recording a game can take as little as 4 hours, or at least it's a 4-hour session and maybe 2 or 3 of them, or a handful of them throughout the course of the game. But it's not. I'm not going into an office from 9 to 5 every day doing Eggman stuff. When the script is ready, they round up the actors and schedule us to record. But we are not working on Sega and Sonic stuff all the time. Sega's doing that. When stuff is ready to record, that's when they call us.
Actually, that's really informative. I knew about the whole freelance and they don't have you on call 24/7. But definitely I definitely think that that's really interesting that they kind of round you guys up when it's all done, said and done.
Mhm. It's based on efficiency. We're kind of expensive to have around.
Yeah.
So rather than, although there are times when we get paid to basically sit around and wait, depending on what the production is, it's more efficient to say, these are the scripts. We can book you. It's with union stuff. There's usually a minimum commitment of 4 hours. So they'll book us for 4 hours. They may only need us for 1 or 2. We get paid for the full 4. Cool. But generally, when the scripts are ready, everyone gets slotted in very much like a doctor's office. I'm in from 10 to 2. Roger's in from 2 to 4. Whatever how it works.
Nice.
Mhm.
Let's go ahead and look at some of the questions that have amassed in our comments here.
Please.
Let's see.
Working? Can I ask some, please?
Go ahead.
Please? Pretty please? Pretty please? Okay. All right, let's see here. Just gonna be scrolling up. Let's see here. Whoopie-doopie-doopie-doo. There's a lot. There is a lot. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, there was one about asking you to say a line, but I'm pretty sure you don't want to do that, and we don't want you to do that because
wanna
we don't
ask
wanna
you to do
get
impressions or
possibly a cease and
lines.
desist from Sega.
A
We don't want to
line.
ask you
Yeah,
to do
Thank
that's not exactly what we want to do.
impressions.
All right,
Thank
let's
you.
see here.
Thank you very much.
Listen,
You and me.
we do
oh,
impressions
ooh,
ourselves,
this
but
will
we
be
won't ask the
perfect,
voice
actually.
actors for them.
Dance,
You
monkey.
want a line?
The
You want
closest
a
we
line
could
from
do is
Eggman,
probably
ask me.
Lou. Literally, the closest
If
person
we
we
need
probably
an
ask is
Eggman
Lou.
line,
That's
Lou.
about it.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, I got one. And this is actually probably gonna help me too, because I'm trying to learn how to do the Eggman voice too, because I want to be flexible. You know, just okay. Anyways, here we go. Okay, from Noobs47. I got a question for you, Mike. Do you have any tips or advice for beginners who want to sound like Eggman?
Yeah, well, listen and repeat is the best way. Just like learning to do any sound alike. Record yourself, and like making a sculpture, you take a block of marble and you carve away whatever doesn't look like a Greek god, and then you got a sculpture. So incremental changes. You listen and, oh, that didn't sound quite right. Let me try something else. You record, you listen back. But the gist of the character, crotchety and angry. He's angry. He's full of hate. He sounds vaguely like Dean Bristow meets Jiminy Glick, at least for the moment. And you do your best you can to make it sound like that. And even so, I will caution, because a lot of people who want to get into voice acting say, well, I can do funny voices and I can do impressions. That's great, but impressions usually aren't what people are looking for, because the voice you're doing an impression of is probably already doing the role. Unless something horrible happens, you might be called to fill in, but that relies on something horrible happening usually. But the best advice about doing impressions, even a bad impression can be a new voice. So I can do some impressions that don't sound very good as impressions, but they become a new character. No one needs to know.
Secrets are secrets.
No one needs to know.
Mm-hmm.
You mind if I ask a question?
Yes. I mean, no.
Hey! Listen here, you. So, I'm aware that you've done like rip-off movies like Ratatouille. What are your opinions on that, if you can answer them at all?
Sure. There are many opinions on many sides of that equation. People ask, why would you do that? And I point out, we are voices for hire. First of all, as a freelancer, freelancers abhor a vacuum. If I'm not working, I'm not earning. So I'd rather be working on something that the world might consider crappy than not working at all.
Work is work.
Producers, yeah, and for me, as I've said before, work is great. Even if I'm working on something crappy, I'm having fun doing it. And if you listen, it's a generally safe bet. You can say, well, you did that well. So cool. That's the goal. Businesses exist to make money, mine included. So people make these homages, let's call them, because they assume, I guess, someone would be tricked into buying them or someone's grandma doesn't know the difference and gives it to her grandchild. I don't know. Um, but for whatever reason, they decide to make the movie. They make it possibly in a different language than English. Then they hire a studio to adapt it and localize it and dub it in English. And those studios work with actors that they know and like, and they send out auditions. That's what happened with Ratatouille. I went in first to read for the trailer, and then I auditioned for the role of Greg. And I guess somebody at Video Brincato decided that's good enough. He'll do. And then we went in and read the lousy script, as it were, and the scripts for its mockbuster brethren. Um, and we did what we were hired to do. As I love to analogize, sometimes plumbers install hot tubs, sometimes they unclog toilets. It's all part of the
Sometimes
job.
turtles.
And as I've said before in my screed on this topic, my joy comes from performing, not from performing in things you think are good.
I definitely have to
fair.
say that I very heavily appreciate that sentiment.
Thank you. And no one's obligated to work, but no one's obligated to not work either. Yes, I could say no, but you're going to pay me for acting? Yes, please.
Exactly.
That's
Like,
that's the bottom line of this career here. So yeah,
hey, I'm getting paid for this.
exactly. You know,
Money's money.
yeah, and
Yeah.
food, clothing, and shelter not free. So if you don't mind, I'd like to be paid for things.
Yeah,
All I have to do is a funny voice and they'll pay me money? Yay!
Yeah, basically.
I mean, I hate
people
to
are
say
gonna
how
rip into-
capitalistic it sounds, but job's a job, money's money.
Yep.
And if people get their own joy from job shaming, I think that might say more about them than about us.
Yep.
Gotta agree with you there.
yeah,
Work
And
is
yeah.
work.
in the,
Don't blame.
Get judged for it.
Oh, sorry.
Ugh.
Go ahead,
in the
Andrew.
age of social media, where shame is the currency of the day, there's plenty of shame and hatred to go around. So, hi, kids.
Anyway,
Hello, kids.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Anyway, for like bad movies and stuff, don't blame the voice actor. Blame the directors. That's their problem.
It's
Exactly.
not
Right,
even
out
the
of the making.
director necessarily. I mean, in the case of that specific director, yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
It's
But-
mostly the writers.
Yeah,
The-
writers.
The
It's
amount
a
of-
studio
yeah,
for
yeah,
hire.
Writers.
Yeah, the producer decides to license it out to someone who can dub it. There are studios that specialize in that. They hire people to adapt the script. They hire actors to read the words, and we are there to fulfill their vision. You know, we're not the director, so if it's
Yeah.
crap, it's the crap they want, and that's what we give them. The bottom line, like, there's a lot of bottom lines here, but the we're there until we're told to go home, and if we're told to go home, generally that means we've accomplished the goal. So we gave them what they wanted. That's a wrap. We go home.
All right.
Another analogy. I love them. If you hire me to paint your house, I'm not going to say, "You sure you want to go with chartreuse?" Really? It's your house. It's your color. You want me to paint it nicely? I painted it nicely. You're happy? I'm happy.
All
Your
right.
bed, you lay in it.
Yeah.
Well, I know that my cast here has a couple more questions for you, so I'll let you guys
Please.
hop around with some of those.
I was just waiting for someone to call my name and just ask a question.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Shut up.
Yeah. This one, I apologize for because I have a Sonic Boom question from the TV show, if
Very
that's cool
well.
with you.
Sure.
Well,
Well,
yeah,
We'll see. I suppose.
yeah, the Sonic Boom, like, yeah, I know Sonic Boom had like a lot of fun, so a lot of fun behind the scenes. So my questions is, well, what is your experience on it? Also, was it mostly scripted, or the writers tell you to wing it or something?
Great questions. Excuse me. It was weird because with me being in New York and everyone else being in LA, I was the added expense of having to hire a studio for me because it was pre-COVID. So they rented a studio in New York. I would travel out every alternate Tuesday, as I recall, and except for a couple of times we recorded together in person, we were all on headphones listening to each other and oftentimes the New York studio being ignored because they've turned us down on the control board, which is fine too. Um, but still, even at a distance, lots of laughing and having a great time. Um, it was scripted. There was sometimes room to ad lib. I can think of some of my contributions that got into the final mix. One of the early episodes, Eggman is singing a song while washing dishes. There were
Oh, I
lyrics.
remember that.
Thank you. There were lyrics in the script. They said, "Here you go, make up a tune. Scrubbing all the dishes with my." Okay, great. And they liked it, and that worked. Um, there was another.
Classic.
Thank you very much. Um,
Uh,
there was another moment where they just let me go off and ad lib angry reactions to something. And then the other one that I was quite proud of, in one of the later episodes, uh, Wally was playing an old army sergeant kind of a character. And true to the age of the character and his period of existence, he pronounced the word robot as robot, which is what a lot of folks did that in the 50s and 60s, I guess. And I was aware of that. So he was doing that in his character. And at one point, I had to respond to him with the word robot. And I came up with a brilliant little ad lib of something named robot. Producers laughed, director laughed, everybody laughed. That made the final cut. That was an ad lib. Thank you. It's the little things. Very
It
much
is the little
like
things.
thank you, in colors with the PA announcements. In one of them, they were all scripted, but in one of them, they wanted me to question with who wrote this, which I did. But then I said, hang on, can I have another take? I have something funny. Something. Who wrote this? Me yelling off screen. So just going off mic made for comedy. And that made the cut too. So thank you. It's the little things.
Yeah.
I do remember a specific line of Sonic Colors where you said, "Sonic, come to the front office. You lost your key."
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you get that
Scripted.
line from?
That was
Yeah,
totally
no.
scripted, but again, we read aloud without sounding like we're reading.
That's true.
I think that's probably
I
one
do
of my
the same
favorite
thing.
things with voice acting is the amount of freedom you can have when taking a line.
Yes and no. We have our freedom, but the producer director gets the final say.
Yeah.
So even the
Yeah.
best ad libs may not
Not all of
actually
them
ever
make it
be
in.
heard. Yeah. But and that's fine too. I've got some great ad libs that did not make the final cut. Okay, that was for me.
well,
I know that feeling.
as long as
You
you're having
record
fun
so
with
many
it, that's
lines
what
and then, like,
matters.
you record
at the end of the
something
day.
that's amazing and it doesn't go through. I know that feeling. I know that way too well.
I know you had a
I feel
couple
like
more
I might as well
questions,
ask the
Protag,
question.
yeah? You had some more scribbled
Yeah,
down?
actually, one of them had to do with something actually you did recently. Well, maybe not recently now because it's probably been a couple of months, but that Eddsworld game thing that you recorded when like all of us were literally in the call hearing you do your thing, just reading your script and recording. That was honestly just a surreal experience, to be honest with you. And it's too bad you couldn't hear anybody because it was really interesting. Everyone was just saying all this stuff and which is yeah.
We were all applauding
funny.
you behind your back.
Yeah,
Thank you.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
One of the downsides of doing what I do is that most of the time I'm alone in a studio. And I love to do a behind the scenes thing where you could either come and watch or at least watch highlights because there's so much going on behind the scenes. One of the great things that I love about what we do is that it's sometimes so clinical. You're deconstructing the script and okay, this has to fit into 7 seconds. We're going to make that happen. Or you're picking apart emotions while you're recording. So the clinical work of what we do is just as much fun as the creative work. Just seeing stuff assemble. I love when stuff is a work in progress and I get to work from an animatic, a very crude rendering of the animation. Basically just sketches that kind of move like a flip card show. what sort of an obscure reference that was, Mr. Old. But
Funny enough, I
get
actually
to
know what
see-
you're referencing.
Thank you.
So am I.
But you get to see how the sausage gets made. It's like, oh, cool. I didn't see this when I'm at home watching cartoons as a kid. So you see animatics, you see half-done animation with one of the games. I hope I'm not spilling any secrets. Had background robot characters, and just to fill the space, there were little R2D2s in the work in progress. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
that's cute.
That'll turn into something else. Yeah, it's like, cool. I get that. So yeah, that's some of the real fun.
I
Now I'm
love
just picturing
seeing
Sonic
background.
hitting a robot or an egg bot, and it's just making the R2D2 scream.
uh,
I love seeing behind the scenes. It's always lovely to see.
Absolutely.
Inkblot, you were gonna say something before I called on Protag, yeah?
Oh, yes. I did write this question ages ago. It was the first question I wrote, so I might as well get this out.
I not hear his microphone.
Well, I hear it myself, so I don't know what's going on with y'all. I've heard that you're sometimes referred to as the bagel guy. What's the story behind that?
Well, as has recently become more public knowledge, I've been Jewish my entire life. And one thing that goes hand in hand with being Jewish, bagel. It's what we do. But more accurately, if anyone's paying attention and is curious about ethnic food, I go for bialys. Had one earlier today. It's the cousin of the bagel. It's round, softer, I guess, than a bagel. Doesn't have a hole. It has a depression, which is either filled with a solution of onion and garlic that kind of seeps in and infects the entire roll as it's being baked, or if places make them messier, grated minced bits of onion and garlic and sometimes poppy seeds, which as soon as you lift that, it all falls down to your plate and makes a mess. But that with a little side of, or a little spread of my favorite whitefish salad, or perhaps a nice cream cheese, a lovely, lovely lunch. And as I was recommending earlier, if you don't have bialys near you, and why should you, Goldbelly has Russ and Daughters on it. Well worth the investment. I think $12 for a dozen bialys, and $30 for whitefish salad. But if you to truly experience my life, invest in a sample.
Actually, I unfortunately haven't been able to find anywhere here that sells bialys yet, but I'm still hunting. I want to try it.
Are available in your grocer's freezer section, depending on your grocer, but sometimes they exist frozen.
Oh, right. I forgot to mention, Mike. I am actually Canadian, so
Oh.
I'm up in the Great White North. Things are a little harder for me to get.
Sure, but I believe Goldbelly ships internationally. I assume they do.
I will have to take a look at that then.
Perfect. Or learn to make
Don't
them at
stop
home. I
looking.
don't know. I'm sure there's a YouTube video.
There
how
are
to
plenty
make
of
a bialy.
recipes that I
don't
was
know.
already looking at.
Perfect.
If they shipped them
comes
out,
to
they'll,
shove.
they'll ship to
In
Canada.
bagels and lox, but that's just me.
Sure. Nothing
Yali,
against
that
that,
sounds
but
interesting.
I skew eccentric in almost everything I do.
Nothing wrong with expensive, interesting.
I mean, you're literally the bagel guy, so why would I not try? I mean,
Please.
you know, life is no fun without any spice in it. Am I right?
That's
Absolutely.
true. Anyway.
As I recall,
so-
actually, while you were recording for the Oddworld stuff, Blanky actually told me that you used to come in with a bagel every time you came into voice calls.
Yes, that's because he tended to call when we were near our local bagel shop.
Oh,
Oh.
well, more to that story then.
Yeah.
So convenient.
More little
Very.
little breadcrumbs.
Literally.
More like
Yep.
bagel, bro.
Oh, by the
Yep.
way, we actually have another question in the chat that I almost completely overlooked. But somebody was asking you, Mike, who is your favorite evil villain besides Eggman? I'm
That's
just
it.
crossing that one out real quick.
Sure. Great question. Uh, real or fictional?
Good question. Real or fiction?
Yes, exactly.
Maybe
You know,
fiction?
It's more of a
Yeah,
wide
it's
Fiction.
berth.
probably a better
Fiction.
choice. There are many choices on the factual side of things, but I'm not choosing those.
No. National tragedies are not entertainment.
Yes, exactly right. I'm gonna go old school children's movies and Baron Bombburst from Chitty
Ooh.
Chitty Bang Bang.
Ooh.
Gert
Ooh, I
Prober.
love
Oh my
that.
gosh.
Gorgeous,
Yes.
gorgeous choice.
That's
I
a
remember
good
him.
cut.
Thank you.
I remember
Glorious
when I was a
mustache.
kid-
A good one.
Mm-hmm.
I
Glorious
remember as a
mustache.
kid, my dad would actually.
Uh-huh.
I remember when I was a little kid, my dad would sing the theme song to Chitty Chitty Bang Bang to me. It was.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until and he also introduced me to the movie, and I love the absolute mess out of that movie.
It's a great, great film, and of course we have to give honorable mention to the child catcher,
Oh,
Oh
absolutely.
yes.
Robert Hauptmann, dancer by trade, but forever terrorizing children as the child catcher.
Honestly, I definitely have to appreciate everything that went into that movie too, though. From the concept of the toot sweets to having the child catcher actually surprise the actors.
Mm-hmm.
That was... Honestly, the movie itself is just a gem. Highly recommend for
Unscripted
anyone to go
things on
find it.
Movies are fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, go get a look at that movie.
I
It's
do
a
have
great
another
movie.
one. Yeah,
I
do
just
have
love
another question.
unscripted prompts that happen in movies, like that one scene from The Shining where Jack opens the door with the axe. Didn't even tell the female actress. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, we did
I almost
recently
completely
lose
forgot I
her,
had
which
actually
is
another question
sad.
I never had a chance to ask
Yeah.
myself.
Rest in peace.
So it's in relative to the Wreck-It Ralph franchise. We could call it a franchise by now, right? There's already
Yeah.
like two.
I mean, there's
like
like
two
There's-
movies
two,
already
three
that
movies
exist,
now,
and it's
right?
got quite a bit of lore.
Yeah.
Plus a game, so I'd say
Yeah.
franchise.
I mean, here's the thing. We all know what happened with freaking, Mario just couldn't exist in the movie because of
He's too
Nintendo.
popular.
But what I'm wondering is, like, there was such a missed opportunity for you to say something cool as Eggman while in the freaking the bad guy's anonymous freaking scene. I just saw Eggman there and I was like expecting him to just say something really funny, but then he didn't have any voice lines and I'm like, oh, missed opportunity. Then Roger Craig Smith came in. I'm like, oh, okay, the moment might have passed for Eggman, but Sonic's here to save the day. I'm like, okay.
Them's the break.
And it wasn't just one movie; it was two movies.
Oh. Yeah.
Poor Eggman got shunted
Yeah.
by the hedgehog again.
Yeah, they missed two birds
So I'm
with
wondering-
two stones.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, like, what is your opinion on that whole thing when there probably could have been something, but unfortunately there wasn't? Like, what is your thoughts on that? Your brain a little bit.
That's the business. No one is under any obligation to hire anyone, and in that case, since Eggman had no dialogue of his own, any mumbling would do, and I guess it did.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
I'll go ahead and ask one of my questions here. So, when voicing Eggman, how many bloopers would you say would be in a line?
Far too many to count. One fascinating thing about Jack Fletcher, our usual Sonic director, he very often will take the first take. These days, well, let me expand on that. Sonic Boom, where we were recording ensemble style, scene by scene usually, and making a radio play, we would often just do one take of a scene. And there are a couple of times when I would think, you sure you want that one? But that's the one he wanted. With games, usually we do two in a row, and he usually likes the first pair, but sometimes he will opt for a second pair or a third pair. And most of the time, as I am human and to err is human, I will flub a line, stumble over a word, and usually enjoy my outtake much more than I should, and have a grand old time. And Jack, who has a great great relationship with us actors will be the first to say, can we try it, Wyatt? Hello. As I said, can we try it one more time with diction, please? Yes, we can. Just like that. Fortunately,
Like on an estimate, do we have an estimation for how many you would accidentally fumble?
I'm going to say 1 line out of 10 will definitely require a retake. As I can tell as I'm saying the words. That's good. Okay, fantastic. But fortunately, we don't do this live. So
Thank
you
God.
don't need to hear. No, fine, outtake.
So we've got some questions in the comments here again. From Pitaru, I hope I'm saying that right. My question for Mike Pollock. How did you come to work to... excuse me. Flubbing lines while trying to read.
Let's take another time. Another
speaking-
take 'em.
speaking
How
of
did you come to
Speaking
work?
of fumble on words,
How did you come to work for 4Kids and for the dub? And did
We'll
you
take
take any
this above.
consideration or take any inspirations from Roger Personas as the roles of the narrator? Or Roger Parsons.
sure.
I can read, I swear.
Actually, it's Parsons. I
Him
was gonna
too.
say.
Listen, I have Lexdicia, okay?
Could be his married name. I don't know how that works.
His surname, perhaps.
Just make
It all
results.
started.
Stacia strikes again.
It started with a firing. Actually, it wasn't a firing. It was at that time it was a layoff because the company, our radio syndication company that I was working with, got sold, and they got rid of some of the long-term people. But my boss assured me, "We want to hire you back, so we'll have you back." So I was able to sneak back in one day, use their primitive digital editing machine to make a demo tape, which I did. Sent it around, shopped it out to, this is how old things were, on cassette, mailed it, snail mail, to blind boxes, which I found in a printed paper copy of Backstage, the theater newspaper, and went to blind boxes, which are basically, we're producing a thing, but we don't want to tell you who we are, send us your tapes. One of those tapes went to the legendary anime dub studio NYAV Post. And before that, that was actually the second hit I got. The first hit turned out to be an episode of Pokemon for 4Kids. The director was Eric Stewart, lovely and talented. He remembered me when the whole 4Kids TV thing was happening, had me come back and audition for some other stuff, passed my tape around. People seemed to like it. So the first thing I auditioned for at 4Kids specifically was the narrator for Yu-Gi-Oh! In the opening episode. Didn't book that. Then booked the mayor on Kirby, which was very memorable. I remember we were out for Chinese food, and the phone rang, because in those days people would call you. They say, "Hi, it's 4Kids calling. We'd like you to be in our series." The series? I booked a series! So such as it was. And that was for the mayor and Kirby Right Back at Ya. Then I think I have the timeline correctly, because it was right around the time we were moving from the city to the suburbs, and I was packing up our apartment with my wife, and I was filthy, and the phone rang, and it was, I believe, Eric Stewart on the phone, saying, "We're looking for someone to be our promo voice. What are you doing right now?" I said, "I'm packing up my apartment, and I'm filthy. Can you come down?" Because there's no remote recording in this day and age, apparently. So I asked my wife, "Can I be excused?" I washed my hands and wiped off my face and hopped on a train and went down to record some promos. And once you're in part of 4Kids, you join part of the talent pool, which they called Talent Central, and they remember you for stuff. So then I auditioned for Ultimate Muscle and Meat on Ultimate Muscle, and all sorts of other stuff, specifically for the narrator. The first episode of Pokemon was just a walk-on role as a miscellaneous grandfather in an episode. But for the interim narrator thing, where I was standing in for Roger for a couple of years, that was very much, the direction was, "You're a kindly old grandfather." I didn't think I sounded like a kindly old grandfather, but lovely director Darren Dunstan did at the time. And so it was not specifically inspiration from Roger Parsons, but it was more creating a new persona in the, as it were, in the same vein.
Huh.
Oh, I didn't notice. Protag left. Oh.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Huh.
Protag seems to have vanished off the face of the earth for a minute here.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Sped off as
As that
usual.
hedgehog will do.
Yeah.
Poor boy's having some more microphone
So-
issues.
One of them
most
would do,
likely.
I guess.
So we have another
I do
question
have a
from the
question
audience,
that I-
really
oh,
quick.
never mind.
Our buddy Webtail asked a bit of a random question. As a voice actor, do you ever, at the most random moments, switch from your normal voice to a character voice? Say you're making food and suddenly the Eggman voice appears like a UFO in an American sci-fi movie.
I am constantly talking to myself. My inner monologue is very often an outer monologue. And coming from the long line of entertainment-related people, or having been around lots of entertainment-related people, a certain amount of an outgoing personality is kind of required. So, yeah, I will. When my kids were younger, I would be the voice of our dogs. Specifically, our one dog, Buddy. Not very bright. So Buddy sounded like this. Hi, I'm Buddy the dog. Which I repurposed for kind of one of the characters I did in Kikoriki later on. But I've done this kind of dopey voice for stuff. And sure, that comes in handy. And if I'm telling a story or just ranting about whatever I'm ranting, you got a rant in character, not necessarily a recognizable character, but it colors the conversation and it adds a lot of subtext without needing to add the subtext as super text. That makes sense? I think it does.
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
yeah, always. The voices are always coming. Often much to people's dismay.
It's kind of like me getting stuck in this voice or another one that I do, which this one I've actually been stuck in for 3 days straight.
That's reasonable.
Yep.
I've been stuck in the Knuckles voice for a couple of days.
No extra shy.
Fan has been practicing their impression of Tails for so
I've
damn
been
long. it
doing the
becomes
Tails
so
voice since I was
naturally.
really young.
Nice.
Hey, it could be
Like I
worse.
said,
Could
we
be
all
voice
love
acting
doing
character
our own
who
voices
honestly
here.
doesn't speak.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just sometimes like to just do Sonics once in a while, and sometimes I get stuck in the voice like I am right now. Whoops.
Yeah,
Then again, you just
Yeah.
sound like him
You
naturally.
just
happens
are
to the best of
problem.
us.
I don't sound exactly like him. No way.
You have your own take on him, which is
Sure.
really admirable.
Hearsay?
I want to
Not a problem.
expand on it.
Nah. Anyway. I do have a very
Wow.
interesting question that I think you might actually find intriguing, or actually, I don't know. So when interacting with fans, how would you deal with the more, obsessive ones?
Oh.
As graciously as possible. I get some criticism for that. But the biggest issue is boundaries. If you've not read them, my website has rules of fan engagement. And it's basically trying to explain to folks who apparently don't have families of their own and other obligations that unsolicited direct messages are very invasive. You're essentially barging into my bedroom, figuratively and or literally, depending on the time. And if you want to chat, I suggest keeping chats public. Kind of like you're sitting either out on your front porch and somebody walks by, or you're at a coffee shop and willing to have a public or semi-public conversation. But unlike the Pope, you don't get a private audience just because you found a way in. So I keep my DMs open because work-related people might have something to discuss. And if I lock down things too tightly, no one can ever reach me. But otherwise, it could be 1 a.m. Hi, Mike. Hello. So, how about that new Sonic thing? What? Why? So, I will
Sorry, who are
entertain
you?
direct messages for a while until it becomes apparent that I don't want to be in this conversation right now, and then I share the rules of fan engagement, and then people get offended, and I have to explain the rules of fan engagement exist because of past experiences. And
Basically,
I'll-
please treat the actors like actual people. They aren't just
Yeah.
They aren't just some display case for you to look into.
Yes, we are here for your amusement when we are here for your amusement. when we're home, it's the exact one of my analogies again, Mr. Analogy. It's like the theater. You go to the theater, there's a stage with a curtain in front of it, and there's a backstage. There's the audience. I did not describe those in the right order, but as an audience member, your place is in the audience. When the curtain comes down, the show is over. The actors then off stage and they're backstage getting ready to go home. You don't get to wander backstage without an invitation. You can meet them at the stage door for autographs, but
But that's about
it's
it.
very, yeah, it's very much a very restricted environment. The show is happening on stage when the curtain goes up. It comes down. We're all off stage. We're getting out of character, and you're not wandering around to talk to us. Then that's a private space, and I am surprised to find with people of various apparently degrees of understanding of things, they can't tell the difference between a direct message and a public post on a Facebook wall or a Twitter feed, and that confounds me to no end. But do you understand what a direct private message is? Private versus public, two very simple distinctions.
Yeah, for me, when I do see you tweet or something, I usually just post it in the public. I don't just DM you and say, "Hey, what's up?"
Yeah, it's. I can also liken it to convention appearances. At conventions, that's why we're there. And you
Yeah,
get, you show up, you get a few minutes. You don't even have to buy anything. You can stand there and chat for a few minutes. If you chat
yeah,
for more than a few minutes, you may be quietly ushered away. But I'm happy to talk to people when I'm available publicly. Jason Alexander, in some interaction with someone, some people came up to bother him at the airport while he was waiting for a flight, and his
ooh,
reaction was, "I'm not here for you now," which is correct.
yeah,
Wave, say hello. I guess attempt. You can ask for an autograph, but if your request gets rebuffed, the correct reason is, "I'm not here for you now." So
Hmm.
yes, I'll
yep,
I will be cordial if you meet me in public, but I might not be prepared for that, and I may be somewhat taken aback and somewhat otherwise engaged with my family or something. So don't take it personally, but it's time and place, time and place.
Yeah. It's also a matter of, again,
Mm.
these are just another person, you know. Don't kind of go up to them randomly. You don't go up to some random person on the street and be like, "Hi, I want your autograph and a hug."
Yes, and I will never
There
take
may
fans
be
for
people
granted because
who.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I will never take fans for granted because without fans, whatever celebrity I have kind of vaporizes. So the reason you're there is the reason I'm here, and that's fantastic, and it's great to see you. But again, time and place. Please go on.
They may be people who are voicing something special to your heart, but at the end of the day, they're still just people.
Sure, and it all ties into parasocial relationships and hero worship, and it can quickly get ugly, as I've discovered recently.
Oh
So,
no. That sounds
oh
like a
yeah,
no,
story. That sounds like a heck of a
eh,
story.
I
social
think
media is
that
having
sounds
its
like
way with me.
that sounds like a story for
Been
another
aware.
day.
Yeah, it's. I've been advised to not delve into it, even though I have so much to say. But so much to say is exactly what I should not be saying. So, yeah,
Understood.
Yeah.
it's a minefield out there. Let's say that.
Delve in when you are allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
You mind if I can ask another question?
You just did.
If you don't mind.
Now you may ask. Now, please proceed.
Not fair!
you.
Come on! Don't do this to me! I get him.
You walked into that
Now
one.
ask
I have
another
enough.
one. Thank you.
I have enough sass and spades to have to deal with everyone else here. But anyways, here we go. You mentioned about appropriateness when it comes to voice acting as a character too. Like I saw your PSA when you almost said the freaking Eggman announcement, but then you stopped yourself because you were like, please don't ask me to say this. It's not appropriate, and we're supposed to be a good, responsible individuals as actors, but also as people. Like, you have a certain amount of integrity to uphold. And honestly, I kind of feel the same way when, like,
Ah,
people
respect.
hear me and they're like, They want to ask me to say like something from like Sonic Zombies, or it's like I'm a trained monkey for people. I just run around and I do the Sonic voice while on VR chat, and the next somebody's like, "Hey, say something about the pizza commercial. We want to hear it." And I'm like, "Please don't ask me to say that." And then they're like, "Oh,
Or
go
when
ahead and say
people
Hooba
ask me,
Dooba. Go ahead,
"Hey,
do
talk
it."
about
And I'm like,
shadow keeping your wife."
no.
Same here, man. Same
Because I'm
here.
like, it's not appropriate, for one. Two, I don't really care about those kind of memes. I'm not there for you, like you said. I'm not there for people. I'm there to expand my horizons as an actor and get some improvisational training by running around and doing random skits and saying funny jokes and stuff as Sonic, but only as a respectable individual. I try my best not to swear. I try to, kind of play around with the character, but I try to remain true to his being. Unless I'm like around friends of mine and they want me, we're having fun, and they're like, "Oh, Sonic, say something, swear something in Sonic's voice." I'm like, "Okay." But that's like rare. I don't do that for anybody. I do that for like my closest friends because one, I trust them, and two, they trust me enough to respect me. And honestly, I can totally agree with you when it comes to the appropriateness of being an actor, and that you're literally not just representing yourself, but you're representing your brand too. Like your brand of Mike Pollock, and then also you're like a representative of Sega and everyone's childhood memories and everything. And honestly, dude, I have so much freaking respect for you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm done. Before I start saying something stupid, I'm gonna stop talking.
One thing people
I actually,
forget.
I have
Yeah.
to agree on that, where there is a certain level of respect, not just towards the actors, but the characters as well. And whenever I'm doing the Tails voice, I personally try not to swear when I'm using that voice. If it happens, it's usually a little slip up. I don't mean to do it. But I have a lot of respect for the characters that people get me to voice. So I definitely agree with ProTag on that, and I know you share that sentiment of there is a level of respect to the characters as well.
I also
Well,
agree
look-
on that too.
Thank you. One thing that people forget, especially when things turn professional, there are all sorts of contracts involved. I've got my signature on all sorts of pieces of digital paper, and that again, bottom line, so much bottom line in my life apparently. The contracts say we are hiring you to voice our character at our request. So it's not a license to take the character and use it for your own profit, and make your own material and read 50 Shades of Grey in your character voice. When Sega wants Dr. Eggman to say something, I hope they call me and have me come in and record that. But otherwise, I'm not Eggman off the clock because it's a contractual relationship. I'm free to give samples at a convention, hi, I'm Eggman, is fine, but I'm not going to give you a monologue, or I'm not going to let you walk up and hand me a script and here, let me read this dialogue I wrote for you.
Yeah. That's
It's
more of
Sega's
a you have to pay for that, and even then, that's
The character doesn't belong to me. It's Sega's property.
Exactly.
Mr. Analogy coming back in. If you bring your car for valet parking, you expect the valet to park your car and return it. You don't expect the valet to take your car for a joyride on the highway with their friends. If you're hired to drive the UPS truck to deliver packages, you don't take the UPS truck tooling down the highway for your fun. It's you treat your job respectfully. Now, that confounds people when they have differences of opinion when I express opinions, and they say, "Oh, you should be punished for that." Okay, no, I separated that from my employment. You may decide to alert the employees about such sort of thing, but it is a separate thing. I'm a human. I have opinions, sometimes stronger opinions than others. You may not agree, but again, that's no reason to start turning into Mr. Job Shamer and getting people's lives potentially ruined. So, yeah, it's again a minefield and a two-way street and other cliches and analogies. But yeah, I respect the character, but also my clients understand that we have lives outside of the character, and as long as we're not disparaging the character, you should be able to express opinions, no matter how unpopular they may be.
I mean, it's a little bit of self-preservation too, right? Like, you want to cover your butt to make sure you don't say something that might be taken out of context, especially with these days with people writing some of the most out-of-pocket, craziest kind of memes and jokes, and then you don't want to be like caught recording saying something that Eggman would never say, but then somebody would take that sound clip and they would just run around the internet saying, "Hey, everyone, I got Eggman to say this thing for me on a freaking recording. Check this out." And then you hear him say something, you're like, "Oh no."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you know what? Yeah. We got to talk about it. What is your opinion on people using AI to be able
Sure.
to mimic the tonalities, the qualities of all the actors that you've actually had a chance to be able to work with and know? How do you think they would feel about their voices literally being taken? And honestly, it's kind of the laziest route if you ask me, because it takes like zero effort to be able to do anything with AI. But
Early
what is your opinion on that?
early in the interactions with fans from doing this, things started to get weird when I became a trophy. Exactly as you said, I got Mike Pollock to say this. This is your life's goal. That's now now it's dehumanizing and objectifying, and not so much. Thanks. Um, AI is just another can of worms. One thing about AI, especially with deepfakes, you have a right to privacy, which includes the use of your own likeness. When I record for clients, I sign a release saying I'm giving this client the right to use my likeness for this specific thing or these specific things. They don't have the right to sample my voice for AI and make me say stuff I never said for a bunch of reasons. First of all, it could end up being something offensive. Secondly, they can use my voice without compensation. Tacky. Thirdly, I like performing. Having a computer perform on my behalf is not me performing. It's weird. But if you look at websites for NAVA, the National National Alliance of Voice Actors, I forget what the A stands for. I think Alliance. Just look up nava.org. They have created an AI writer, which you're supposed to draft your own version of, but have clients sign it saying, I'm, as a client, promise not to sample your voice and use it for other stuff, and we'll only use it with your permission and not with a digital sample and all sorts of stuff. Because you have a right to control your own likeness to some degree, but kids in their parents' basements who have access to AI modeling software and services say, look, I found this audio on the internet. I'm going to sample it into this model and make my own stuff. And you can't do anything about it. And I don't care.
Yeah. Honestly, it's not fair to the actors. It's not fair to impressionists either, who are more than happy to be like, hey, I can do this voice. You could hire me.
The impressionists are a special case because presumably the impressionist would have some sense of morals.
Exactly.
And would not, say, yes, I can make Mike say disgusting stuff. But as I point out to the people making AI models, how would you like it if I sampled your voice or took to your social media and made it look like you were saying, I pick my nose and eat it? Would you feel good about that?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah, from my morals,
like-
I'm just doing Sonic's voice specifically because on one of my servers, I'm dubbing the IDW comics later down the line.
Cool.
Which actually, on that note, I myself handle the Tails voice. Andrew does his Sonic voice. We have Lou handling our Shadow and our Eggman. And our Knuckles.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Versatility is the way of the world.
Oh, of course, especially when it comes to voice acting. Having that level of versatility, being able to really play around with your voice and make it into something new for someone, that's absolutely insane and mind-blowing to me, and it's why I love this as even just a hobby.
Yeah.
Excellent.
to go off of what Fan said a little bit more, we've also kind of agreed that if we were to ever do anything about Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, I would be Barry, as you can see by the fact that I'm represented by the little polka. But I'm also pretty versatile with some of our voices myself, and I'm trying to spread out, get better at it. So, yeah.
You've been training him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just honestly very happy that we have such a versatile cast to begin with. And I love seeing how other voice actors interact with each other compared to how my little crew interacts with each other, and it's honestly all good fun.
I would hope so.
Actually, I believe Inkblot's got a couple more questions for you.
All right, here we go again. All right. So, do you have any sort of interesting or funny stories from throughout your career that you're willing to share?
Sure. I will share one. I've shared it before. I got flack for it. I'm sharing it again. Back when I had a day job and would skip out for work, I would occasionally have back-to-back sessions that would require me to have to go somewhere like a Starbucks to do some work for my day job in between sessions. One day that was happening, and I was being a little more generous with my time, and someone was chatting me online, probably by direct messages, I recall. Said, "I'll be in New York. I'd love to meet you." I said, "Well, as it happens, I will be sitting in a Starbucks for an hour in between gigs. If you want to come, maybe I'll buy you coffee. We'll come and sit and chat." Did that. A young female presenting person at the time showed up. We sat, we chatted. I bought coffee. It turns out all she really wanted was to talk about Dan Green. "What's Dan Green like? You work with Dan Green?" He said, really had little interest in me. He said, "Okay, this is already awkward, but fine. Well, wrapped up work, gotta go. Got a session for 4 kids." "Oh, 4 kids? Can I come?" "No. But if you'd like to follow me to the door, I'll leave you out on the street while I go inside." "Okay." Went in,
I'm sorry.
scanned my... Yeah, again, it doesn't get any less weird. Went in, scanned my ID, went up to whatever floor 4 kids was on. Went into my session, did my session, came out of my session. The studio manager stopped me on my way to my session, said, "Mike, did you say someone could come up here for a tour?" "What? What? No." Some
Oh no.
half-crazed fan
no.
followed me in, or followed me to the door. No, apparently half-crazed fan followed me through the door, announced that she was visiting 4 kids in the next elevator ride up, and let herself
Oh.
into the main reception area,
Oh,
mentioning my name.
God. No.
Uh-huh. So I got a hell of a talking to from the studio manager, and did not remember that fan fondly after that.
Understandably so, my
Yeah,
goodness.
that. Oh.
Studio manager explained to me that
Would
this
that
was
be
a place
fan
of
level
business.
or stalker level?
I'd say stalker. And again, remember, she wanted to find Dan Green. So I was just along for the ride, apparently. But yeah, I got a lecture. "This is a place of business. We don't give tours." "Yes, I know. I didn't say she could come in. Your door is a public space, and you can look up the address so everyone would know what building it's in." I did not see that as a problem. I also did not see what was happening behind closed elevator doors. So there we were.
Yeah, so
Oh,
she basically
man.
used you as a ticket and just no thanks.
Kind of pretty
Took
much
advantage of the situation.
Well,
And then got annoyed when I shared that story. I said, "Sorry?"
Oh, I am so sorry to hear that. Jeez.
Thank you.
Mm.
And again, I tried to tell the story again respectfully, but it's not a respectful story.
Again,
That is
please, the actors are people too.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, okay, another question, real quick. Actually, this is coming from a personal kind of thing, because there's somebody that I was supposed to work with a long time ago, and she's kind of infamous in the Sonic community, I want to say. But
Mhm.
somebody was trying to get me. It was a good buddy of mine. His name's Trey. I think it's Trey Nobles. I think that's his name.
Okay, that sounds
But
familiar.
he's like a studio friend. Yeah, he's a studio friend of mine. And I became good friends with him. And I was supposed to be possibly doing work with somebody called Emmy Jones. I think that's her name.
Oh, Emmy
That's it.
Jones.
Emmy Jones?
And they approached me because they're like, oh, yeah. They approached me because they were like, oh, you sound, relatively similar to Roger Craig Smith, except you're a Canadian bootleg. I'm like, that's so hurtful and so cool at the same time to be given such a title. So I've been kind of running with that for a while.
And I kind
And
of adopted it myself.
I was like, yeah. And then my friend Trey saw me get into Emmy server. And he's like, dude, what are you doing here? I'm like, oh, I heard there might be a possibility for me to find some voice work here. And, money's money. So point me in the direction of the sound booth and I'll get to recording. Of course, not literally. I have my own sound booth for recording. But my friend Trey pulled me off to the side and he's like, dude, are you sure you want to be here? I'm like, why? He's like, well, Emmy's kind of a Sonic fan, like a Sonic fanatic. That's how he put it. And I'm like, oh, okay. You're afraid that if I work with her, something's going to happen, right? And he's like, yep. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. Okay, a little bit worried now. But I almost worked with her, but I want to get your opinion. How was it working with her on the whole Sonic R thing?
It turned into a situation which I had expressed publicly before. It's worth noting that I'd never worked with her directly. I worked with the director, who is a completely different person. But the challenge that I ran into was, since it was an indie thing without the benefit of an agent and contracts and getting everything laid out in great detail beforehand, I was surprised because I did not ask the right questions. And what I thought was a cameo, basically, to make fans happy during pandemic times, which would have been okay because pandemic times were extremely special times. It turned into a full length session and then finally several more with lack of compensation. And it presented a whole bunch of problems of, why am I screaming my brains out as I would normally do for a proper compensation without compensation? This is beyond the cameo that I was expecting. And again, I may have been told that it was a longer term thing, but I don't recall that I was. And I was a gentleman and fulfilled my obligation. But after some time had passed and the thing had gone public, I expressed my dissatisfaction because otherwise people would want to take advantage of me in the same way because I felt taken advantage of. So I had to say, that didn't go the way I had planned. Probably my fault, but still not leaving a great feeling behind. So I'm now very careful with indie fan stuff and fan interactions.
Understandably so.
Fair enough.
Yeah, honestly, as you should be.
And
Yeah.
But so
basically the end
basically
of
what
that
you're
story
saying is
was
I dodged a bullet. Is that, somewhat relative, like Cliff Notes kind of thing?
It,
Dodged a bullet?
wasn't necessarily even dodged. I did the work and was yelling my brains out for free. So there was possibly at least grazed by a bullet.
Yeah.
to be more accurate to say this end of the
Well,
story was,
I mean, I was
show
meaning
me
in
the
reference to
money.
me. Like, did I dodge a bullet by like not working with her and kind of, putting distance between myself and probably one of the biggest Sonic fanatics around?
I'm not going to cast those types of aspersions because it's different. It's different for me because my name's on contract, and this is my living. So, doing all of the work for free, bad for business. I'm my own small business, and working for free, bad for business generally. So yeah, it's different. I'm not going to completely badmouth the experience, but as a professional, and again, here comes arrogance and egotistical. As a professional, the rules are different.
You know what? Fair enough.
So your mileage may vary, as they say.
Your mileage may vary. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I'm actually gonna bring up a little
That makes
thing about what Protag said earlier, the bootleg Canadian thing. The reason we say bootleg Canadian is because we already know there's other Canadian actors who have done stuff for the Sonic franchise.
Right.
So we're just the bootleg versions of that.
That's reasonable. I guess the Americans would be the bootleg
Yeah,
Americans.
pretty much.
So,
I'm only half Canadian, so I don't really know where that puts me on that spectrum.
I mean,
Half bootleg Canadian.
I'd
Oh,
still
and
count that as
my
means
mom-
you
bootleg.
enjoy
dad's
maple
not-
syrup on half of your pancakes.
I put half of butter and half of can. Yes. Anyway. All right, so
believe,
I do have a couple more
yeah.
questions, but this is
Go
I
ahead.
think would be, well, a couple things before I do. So as an Eggman voice actor, quote unquote, for me, I do humbly very much respect your rules of how you portray characters, especially of the no swearing thing on specific characters like Eggman. I really do try my best to not do that, and if I do, it's completely on accident. And it really pains me whenever I see people completely disrespecting your character, well, I guess Sega's character, but also disrespecting your work.
Thank you. I would clarify that there's no problem with swearing in character if that's appropriate to the character. I've portrayed all sorts of characters that'll be cursing up a blue streak. If it's part of the character, swell. I tend to think that I don't sound extremely authentic when swearing, but if the director likes it, fantastic. But Sonic is not that kind of franchise for the most part. So, but also
My
the
shadow
bottom
thing,
line
damn,
of
Only Shadow the Hedgehog.
well, yes, but that was not in my script. Had it been in my script, sure. If those are the words they want him to say, that's why I'm there. I am the voice for hire, and I am lifting words off the page. But generally, that's not the case. But also, in the grand scheme of things, as I said earlier, Sega are the ones who get to put words in their characters' mouths. Just because you want to hear, we go back to the dance monkey comment from earlier.
Yeah.
If all you want is to hear your words in someone else's voice, really? That's what you want?
Why is that your life goal?
Yeah, that's just bizarre.
Please reconsider.
Did
Anyway,
you?
so-
If you go to place, you say, "Excuse me, Hamlet. Hamlet, could you please say some of my own dialogue? Thank you." I don't think that happens.
Yeah.
Please
No.
reconsider your life choices.
Anyway, to the question that I'm asking. So, when people make Sonic projects, what are your thoughts?
Who's dropping out, you or me?
Lou.
Okay, thanks.
Wait, am I dropping out?
You had a little bit
Yeah,
of
you
a
have.
hiccup there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me
That's
react.
It's your Jeopardy theme
No.
here.
So, when people make Sonic projects, if you've ever reacted to them, and people attempt to do the Eggman voice, what are your thoughts?
I don't generally have thoughts on that because generally I'm not here to critique other actors' performance. There are plenty of critics who'll do that, but it crosses a bunch of lines that I would rather not cross. I'm not going to critique a fellow actor. Critiquing is a little too close to coaching, which I also don't do. So it's not something that I would consider. If you want to do your own interpretation, go ahead. But we're not doing American Idol, and I'm not here saying, "Little pitchy dude, dog." So, yeah, no. I also point out I'm not an Eggman scholar per se. I'm there to give the director what they want, but if there's a pop quiz on Sonic lore, not gonna happen.
I mean, you've been there for a lot of it, but I wouldn't expect you to
but I'm always
remember
there
like
with the
every bit of it.
Yeah, and I'm always there with the expectation of I hope this leads to more work in this franchise.
Exactly.
Me having knowledge of a bunch of Sonic lore.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, if we want our lore keeper, we've got Andrew here.
Yo.
Yes, he's the lore man. Anyway, I do have one more question, and then I'll be finished.
So,
So that way everybody else can answer the question. So, going across franchises real quick. So, what are your thoughts on Kenny James, the voice of Bowser?
met
Ever
him
work
once at a convention. He was very nice when I met him at a convention. Beyond that, he's again for critiquing, fine actor. He's doing a great job doing what he's doing. All right.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, I heard the same kind of question be asked to I think I asked it to Charles Martinet, and I was like asking him like because there's one time when I bumped into him and I was like, hey, everyone likes to do the Mario voice and they try to do basically an impression of what you can do. What is your opinion on that? And he told me that the bottom line is you have to understand that it's a voice you created, and if people love your voice enough to mimic it, he said that imitation is like the highest form of flattery. So I can't help but wonder if like every time you hear like someone doing an Eggman voice that sounds relatively similar to yours, you're probably like, oh, that's so flattering. Yes. Or so, I don't know. I can't do Eggman's voice, but I mean, I would think that it would kind of, in some way, kind of, stroke your, I guess, stroke your ego. Is that the term? I'm not sure, but it would have something to do with if you hear it and you're probably thinking like, well, I must be doing something right because people like my voice enough to literally mimic it.
Yes.
Or
That part's flattering.
I'm gonna go back to,
If you're fishing for compliments, that gets
Yeah.
a little creepy. Not you personally, but people come up and say, "Rate my Eggman voice." Yeah, okay.
I mean,
Rather
hearing one out in
not.
the wild
I with
seems
the
like it'd
Sonic
be a little
people
more
too, so I
flattering
know that
than,
feeling a little
oh,
bit.
let's
Not
bring it to
completely,
you.
but I kind of know the feeling too.
Yeah,
That's actually one of my
Like
questions
people-
was going to be that. I'm kind of glad I didn't put
So-
that on my list.
I actually have a little bit of a funny story from my last con that I went to when I met Roger.
Sure.
I get really excited sometimes, and when I get excited,
Yeah.
I tend to get stuck in that Tails voice. So the entire time I was interacting with Roger, I ended up stuck in the Tails voice.
Okay.
So,
Wouldn't be the first time, I'm sure.
yeah, no, unfortunately not.
It
So,
was a bit of an impulse.
essentially, we basically had a little bit of a back and forth unintentionally with the Sonic voice and the Tails voice. Completely out of character, just talking casually. It was fun.
Right.
So, have you ever had any fan
something
interactions like
there.
that yourself, where
Love to experience
someone will
that.
get stuck in their voice? Maybe it's an Eggman, maybe it's a Sonic, and then you just kind
every
of...
once in a while. We chat. It's borderline bizarre, but not completely bizarre. And it's, again, occupational hazard. No problem with it. But it's one of the other things about the whole on-stage, off-stage thing that we mentioned, that I mentioned earlier. When we're recording in a session, it's very much like a light switch. And action, they don't actually call action. But if they were to call action, we're in our characters, we're doing our dialogue, and then cut, they don't actually yell cut when recording, but then we're going back to ourselves for the most part. Some will stay in character a little bit, but we are keenly aware that we are not our characters. We call each other by our actual names when we record it. Most of the time, occasionally, the director will refer to us by our character name as we're beginning a scene, but we are very aware of the fact that we are actors performing roles, wearing our street clothes and headphones in front of microphones, performing. And that's okay. But there are some who can't. I'm suspending your disbelief, but
Only see you through your characters, correct?
yeah, and they suspend their disbelief to such a degree that they can't believe that there are real people in a recording studio with a team of engineers and directors and producers making the magic happen, and then having the magic need to be edited together to turn into that magic. So, it's some people take that as meanness. It's really not. This is how we do our job, and yes, it's a job. It's a job we love, but still, jobs are set up with certain protocols to get the work done efficiently, and ours is no exception. And we
Mhm.
don't show
It's
up in character and stay in
it,
character.
it's kind
You're saying something, Protag?
I was yeah, I mean, being someone who actually did take some acting in school and whatnot, I kind of understand what he's talking about, because a lot of times, what people don't realize is that, okay, voice acting's one thing, but to act.
Oh.
He cut out.
He died.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Mic issues.
I'm sorry, our Sonic seems to be dying repeatedly.
All right,
That
I'll
does seem to be a
chime in.
problem today.
There is method acting and there is non-method acting. When I do stage work, and even when I'm doing voiceover, I'm not a method actor. I can be a method actor. I tried a couple of exercises to do method acting. Once it's like, okay, I get this, but this is a lot of extra work, I think, to achieve the goal that I would like to achieve. So I have found that method acting not necessarily the best approach for me. For others, they're more method than I am, and they will immerse themselves in their character and stay in character for hours on end. That's fantastic. I don't find that necessary. I am very much the light school, the light switch school of thought, in that I will take the script, read the script, break it down, do the scene, take notes from the director, and if the director thinks they're getting the performance they want, then I have done what I've been asked to do.
All right.
Alright, I do have one here that I have written down.
Is this stupid thing working
have
now?
you-
Yeah, you're working.
Yes.
Go ahead, Inkblot.
Yes.
Oh, finally!
But,
Okay.
yes. Is there any
Shoot,
sort
what was I
of...
saying?
Uh,
Let's
let's
let Inkblot
let's
talk while you
Jack
figure
do it.
that out.
Yeah, man.
But yes,
Yeah,
have you
hurts.
noticed any sort of differences between dubbing anime and more quote-unquote regular voice work?
Okay.
Excuse me. The technical aspects of dubbing, even though a lot of the assistance in lip flap matching comes from the engineer these days, but we are you have to kind of have a feel for the lip. I'm flapping my fingers so that it looks like lips are moving. Very bad for basically radio here. You have to be aware of the lip flaps so that when you're dubbing it, you're pausing in the right spot, and oftentimes there are multiple takes to get you to try and match the flap before surgery has to be done. But ultimately, the engineer is stretching and squeezing and cutting and splicing. I enjoy the freedom of prelay stuff where you're recording before any animation is done, because then you get to set the pace, you get to speak at a more normal pace, as long as it ultimately fits into time. And since I come from radio, which was very much the real-time school of thought as well as stage work, that feels more natural. But I'm competent enough at what I do that I was able to figure out dubbing fairly quickly in my first dubbing session for Pokemon. And so there is room for both. All different genres, and the methods in which they record are tons of fun.
All right, Protag, did you figure out what you were trying to say?
Yeah. Maybe? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Sorry. ADHD go burst sometimes. I was thinking of something that it's like I think of something, I say
Come
something,
on,
and then
spit
also
it out!
like a bird. Wait, what was I saying again? Oh, yeah. Anyways,
Before you forget.
I did want to ask. I know that you're a voice actor. What exactly did you have any schooling or any training at all, like voice acting or acting in general? Like, you know, did you like? Are you one of those people that? I'm kind of outing myself here, but are you one of those people who kind of, you know, went to like drama and like the whole Shakespearean thing, where you like learn how to pronounce your voice and be like, oh, forsooth, I am Dromio and Juliet is the. I can't freaking do that stuff anymore. But
I get where you're going.
did you have any learning like that? Did you any practical teaching of acting?
I had training, but very little of it was formal training. As a kid, there were community theater. There was a weekend theater group at one of our local elementary schools that I went to. I did a summer at theater camp. I did all sorts of school shows, essentially learning on the job in junior high school and high school. Um, in college, I wanted to minor in theater at Syracuse University, where I was majoring in communications. You can't do that. You can't minor in theater. You must devote your entire life to the theatrical arts. Could have, but again, having already chosen radio as my career, couldn't do that. I was able to audit a couple of classes in very useful skills that I still use to this day, stage dialects and the International Phonetic Alphabet. There was some overlap in those two courses, but I took a linguistics course where we learned the International Phonetic Alphabet, which allows you to transcribe individual sounds of language so you can see pronunciation of strange words in any language pretty much at a glance. And I still use those when I'm doing scripts where there's a word I have to remember how it's pronounced. I'll go and transcribe it, either copying it from the internet or from Google Gemini these days is very helpful for that. And I can read the funny characters, usually, especially with a practice round or two. But that skill has stuck with me. And then beyond that, while still doing community theater in college and afterwards, I took voiceover coaching, which was helpful. The coach himself ended up being disgraced with an unrelated scandal, but he taught me how to lose the radio habits, how to break down a script, how to cold read, which we have to do all the time, how to market myself, how to make a demo tape, and that led to a lot of the commercial work I do and some additional cartoon work that I do. But I came in after having done a lot of stuff at 4Kids, so I was armed with that knowledge and that experience. But then he got me into commercial stuff, so all the commercial stuff I owe to him, as well as a lot of the agents I work with today.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much for answering my question.
Sure.
All right, well,
Anyways,
we've got time for a few more questions, and then we've got to wrap this up. So
Anyways,
I
hey,
believe...
bro.
Yeah?
I'm just gonna say, I gotta go
Yeah,
because
I
I gotta
know.
go get
Andrew's
some
gotta
dinner
head
and
out.
stuff.
So we're gonna go
Yeah.
ahead and...
But it's nice to meet you, Mike. And
Thank you so much.
for my last question, I'm just gonna give Wiz that one since he had the same question as mine.
Very
So
well.
I'll let him have that.
Okay.
All right. We'll
Okay.
see you
Anyway,
later, Andrew.
you all have a lovely day, and I'll see you guys later.
All right.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Later, Andrew.
Bye.
Alright.
There he goes.
Bye, buddy.
I'll ask his question for him now that he's done. Now that he's gone. But everyone knows you are the voice of Eggman. But is there any other role you have in your voice career you think you did great on?
Yeah, there's a couple of must-watches, if I may say. From earlier in the career, Jungle Emperor Leo, where I played Dr. Mustache. Lots of drama happening there. And then most recently in Pluto, Professor Ochanomizu. Got some very nice notices, and I'm very pleased with the work that happened with that. Let me see if I can pinpoint something in between that I would have you go looking for. Not that I can think.
Dr. Stone, I thought you did a pretty good job as
Okay.
the Russian scientist. Or
Thank you. I'll
the
go with that.
astronaut.
Thank you, Dr. Stone. Great choice.
Yeah.
There's one that I remember that I'm going to pull. This is going to be a bit of a blast from the past.
Try me.
Idon Korbolowitz from Berserk.
Sure. Absolutely. Lord of Dawn, I was, and a lot of NYAV posts going on here, by the way. Jungle Emperor Leo was NYAV post. Berserk was NYAV post. Dr. Stone was recorded at NYAV post, but for Funimation remotely. So yeah, all the interactions with NYV Post over the years have been fantastic. So thank you for liking all of those.
Yeah, you're welcome. You did an amazing job.
All right. Ooh, since we only have a little bit more time for a few questions, I say we open it up to the audience, and I see one here that actually might be interesting.
Actually, I
'cause
believe
I wanna
Lou's
kind of
got
expand
one
on
more
this question.
question.
I mean,
Lou, keep it brief.
yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
That's if they're still here. I don't know if they are.
Ooh,
Lou, buddy, you there?
Lou.
All right. Well, we'll move on to the audience questions then.
All right. Here, I'll read one of these. From Noobs47. I've got a question, Mike. What are your thoughts about the director of the Sonic movies, Jeff Fowler?
I have none. I've not worked with him. And even if I had, I don't know that I have opinions, but we've had no interaction. So, yeah, I got nothing.
Well, let me add on to this a little bit then. Do you have any opinions on, like, how it felt to have someone like Jim Carrey be able to do the voice of Eggman in the Sonic movies, and a couple times he kind of did like a small nod toward your actual voice that you do for Eggman, even though, you know, it honestly sounds pretty good to me, but I'm curious, like, what do you think?
I'm glad he was able to make his lots of money in the film while I got nothing.
Aw.
I was not involved in the film
That
beyond
was
whatever
a deep
suggestions
cut.
to the contrary. I don't know
It
how
would have
else
been
to
nice
react
to
to
have
that.
you in that, admittedly.
It would have been.
Yeah,
and
that
yet
would have been
it was
nice.
not. It did not happen.
Was not meant to be.
It'd been amazing
Oh.
if you just did like a cameo thing too, kind of like how
Yeah, that would be nice.
how they got freaking the voice actor Charles Martinet to actually voice a character in the Mario movie, and I was like, missed opportunity.
There are a
Actually,
lot
they
of
got to
missed
ground the voice
opportunities
too.
that the movie industry makes. We do have another
That's why
question.
I should make my own movie, and then I'll do all the right moves. No missed opportunities. Everything will be perfect. It'll be perfect.
Okay, calm down, bud. All right. We do have another.
I am
We do
calm.
have another question in the audience here.
Easy.
Mike Pollock, may I ask, how did
Mhm.
you get to know TSS Killer? I saw you did an interview with him back in 2009, as he told me about you.
Thank you. The same way most people get in touch, they get in touch, either publicly or privately, and they say, "Can we chat?" Sure, we can chat, and we arrange some type of a predetermined chat like this one, and we had a great time.
Actually, to help answer that question a little bit on my end, I had gotten a little bit of contact to Mike here through a friend of ours called Blanky, a mutual friend. And Blanky kept telling me that, oh, you should say hi to Mike, you should talk to Mike, say hi, poke at him, be like, hi. But I wanted to be a little more professional and wanted an actual reason to talk to Mike here. So I figured the concept of actually dragging you onto our podcast was the best way to give a reason to interact.
Fantastic.
And admittedly, I am very glad that I
I'm
did.
so happy you did it.
Thank you.
I'm sure that
Thank
the
you for
entirety of our peanut gallery here is happy to have you.
Excellent. Thank you for
Absolutely.
being
Take
so
these-
kind and gracious.
And honestly, I am very, very grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
I
Pleasure to
hope
be
that
here. Such fun to have.
eventually in the future we can have you on for another episode. But
Sure.
that's
That'd be great.
That's currently neither here nor there.
Mhm.
And with that, I think it's about time we start wrapping up. Thank you everyone
Cool.
for joining us in the video. Thank you, Mike, for coming to say hello, hanging out.
Certainly. Thanks so much for
It
having
was absolutely lovely to have you.
me. I'm delighted. Right back at you.
We absolutely enjoyed.
If I could
Having you
just
here.
say something real quick. This might be a little pretentious of me, but I look forward to kicking your butt in the next game session.
Thank you so much. We can only hope.
Hey, let's hope that I can be there too.
Of course you're
Excellent.
gonna be there, buddy. You're hosting the freaking thing.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.
Indeed. Thank you so much.